welcome to today's Facebook Live. So this is the third Facebook Live, and the first one I went over design inspiration, and the second one I went over common pattern alterations. Today I'm going to be going over fabric, trims, supplies, and cutting, and then next week we will get right into sewing. Now before we get started, I do want to say that if you don't want to wait for all the video tutorials to come out, there is a bra making workshop here in the studio next Saturday in Philly, and I'm offering that virtually. So there was somebody who reached out yesterday, was like, I saw that you're doing something virtually, I would love to sign up. She was like, you know, I just need like the motivation, because if I get through like the first video tutorial, I probably will get through like the second video tutorial or the third video tutorial. So knocking it out in one day is like a huge motivator for me. So she really liked that idea, and she signed up. So the last day to sign up is this Friday, and it'll all go down next Saturday from 10 a.m. to about like 4 or 5-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you sign up by this Friday, I can ship you the kit so that you can have everything cut out the day of. And let's just say that you already bought a kit and you're like, well, I don't want to buy another kit, I just want to join virtually. We can do that as well. But I think that it's a great opportunity and a great motivator to just knock out everything at once, and support a small business like myself. So in today, I'm going to go over fabric, I'm going to go over trims, I'm going to go over cutting. And before I get into that as well, I also want to say that there are kits available for the Lord, and you can purchase all the materials by the yard. I sound like a broken record, and that's like what I do, but I always get those questions like, are there DIY kits? And do you sell all the supplies by the yard? Yes, I do. So I am going to switch the camera around to the overview and get right into the fabric and cutting and all that jazz. All right, so let's go over, I have all the supplies here. Let's go over them one by one, and then I'm going to do a demo on cutting one piece, and then you'll use that same method to cut out all the rest of the pieces. So the first, let me just wait for this train to go by. The studio is right next to the train tracks. First, let's go over the main fabric. So the main fabric I have a all over stretch mesh, which is like a flock dot, and all the pattern pieces, or the Lawren was designed for fabrics between 8 and 20% spandex, and that goes for the main fabric, combo fabric, and lining fabric. So this is the main fabric, and so it's between 8 and 20% spandex, or about 40% stretch. And you might be asking, well, how do I find the stretch percentage? So in the PDF pattern, it goes over direction of greatest stretch. And how do you find the direction of greatest stretch? Because on the patterns, so if you purchase a stretch mesh, and it's a two-way stretch mesh, and you need to find, it's between 8 and 12% spandex, but you also need to find the direction of greatest stretch, because on your pattern pieces there are lines, and that indicates the direction of greatest stretch, how your pattern should be cut. Just like in woven fabrics, you cut your patterns according to the grain line. In lingerie, you cut your patterns according to the direction of greatest stretch. So it's really easy to find. You want to take a piece of your fabric inside don't go on the edge, but go a little bit inside, and you're going to take it about like 10 inches, and then you're going to stretch it, and you're just going to see where it naturally rebounds. And of course I could stretch it all the way to, let's say, like 15, but you want to just do this and just see where it's naturally rebounding. So this is between like 13 and 14, so this does have 40% stretch, between like 30 and 40% stretch. Then you want to do it in the opposite direction. Do the same thing, and you're gonna mark, you're gonna notice one is gonna stretch, so this one actually stretches to 16. So this has 60% stretch in the direction of greatest stretch, and then 40% stretch in the other direction. Now generally you want to use your direction of greatest stretch for support. So you can, so I like to do, so on the back, example being, on the back of the panty, I like the direction of greatest stretch to be going around the body. It allows more movement, it's a little bit more comfortable. In the bodice, you want the direction of greatest stretch going up and down. This helps stabilize the breast or the chest area from side to side. But you might cut it in a different direction for different levels of support. So even though I say cut it in this direction, if you want it to serve a different purpose, you want more support here, or you want less support here, you want to be more stretchy, you can do that. So it's not like hard facts and rules. So your main fabric, I have a red flocked dot mesh for my main fabric. It has, I think it's like 11% spandex in it. It has direction of greater stretch in the one way going 40%, one way going 60%. Now let's go over combo fabric. The combo fabric is a stretch galloon lace. Now the width that you need is going to depend on the size that you are making. And don't think that if you don't have 9-inch or that this width of lace that you can't make the Lawren. There have been some awesome people part of the Facebook group who have posted their variations and how they use narrower stretch galloon lace in their Lawrens, which I think is really awesome. So this is your combo fabric, stretch galloon lace between 8 and 12% spandex, and that's it. And then let's go to linings, because I feel like the linings for the Lawren deviate a little bit from normal Madalynne kits. So the kits come with two options, the stretch mesh and the power knit. Usually in all my kits, I suggest the power knit for larger sizes such as large, extra large, 2XL, 3XL. And when I made the first samples for Lawren, I was thinking the same thing, but when I actually sewed one up, I was like, wow, this is actually really firm for having the Duramesh in it, or the power knit in it. So I made up a size 2X sample, tried it on the plus size fit model, and she was like, this definitely provides enough coverage or support. So I think that having the main fabric, or the lining fabric, with the main fabric, with the combo fabric, that's 3 fabrics right there. So it does add a lot of support. So if you're on the fence of like whether you want the Duramesh or the power knit, I would shy on going toward the mesh side. This is going to offer like a lot of support. And I only suggest this in the bodice pieces, so the center front piece as well as the side bodice, not the back bodice. So the lining options are stretch mesh or the power knit. And for the back, so all the pieces are lined except for the back panty panel. That I just thought it was a little bit sexier to have like a sheer butt, and as well as for like easier movement. So those are all the fabrics. It doesn't require, like the Maris requires a lot of supplies. This doesn't require as much, but it requires more of each. So let's go over, those are the fabrics, and then let's go over the trims. So the trims, you're going to use a soft picot panty elastic, and it's usually 1/4 of an inch wide. You could use 3/8 of an inch, or even 1/2 of an inch as well, especially if you're a larger size, but I recommend the soft panty elastic. It's a little bit softer, so you don't get VPLs in the panty. The other trim is a flat elastic, 1/2 an inch wide. Now if you don't have this, you can actually use, this is serving no purpose except for design, and usually I say that elastics are not interchangeable, but this isn't serving a purpose. So if you have extra strap elastic, shiny shoulder strap elastic, that's 1/2 an inch wide and has a shiny side, you can use that. And then the other trim that you need is your snap closure for the gusset. Now, the Lawren is available in 2 views, and one of the views uses a snap closure and one of them doesn't use a snap closure. All the kits come with these, and they're also available by the yard. So those are all the fabrics and trims and supplies that you need. Additional supplies that you'll need are microtex needle or a sharp needle. So whenever sewing with fabrics that have spandex in it, I have most success with microtex or sharp needles. If you're sewing through power knit, definitely go up to like a size 14 or maybe even a size 16 needle. Sometimes I get skip stitches, and once I go up needle size, it usually resolves itself. Another one of my best friends is Otis 505 spray adhesive. So when I go into the cutting demo, I will show you how this is used, but this will come in so handy. This is one of those things where that if I'm out of it, I actually won't do what I need to do. I'll go out and get it. I can't live without this. It doesn't gum up on your needle, but it does sometimes come off on your needle or on the arm of your sewing machine. And if I just wipe it down with some Lysol, it usually comes right off. And as long as you're like proactive about it and clean your machine like every time you project, it doesn't gunk up on your machine. And then obviously you'll need a sewing machine with a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. Don't think that if you don't have a fancy machine that you won't be able to sew it. All you need is a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to demo how to cut out the center front piece. I'm not going to cut out all the pieces, but you're going to use the same method to cut out the rest of the pieces. And on page 10 and 11 of your PDF pattern, there are pictures of how each one should be cut out, if it needs main fabric, lining fabric, the combo fabric, all that jazz. So I would refer to that, but I do want to show you how I cut out. One thing that I'm also not going to go over is how to print out your pattern and then cut them and then tape them together. It's pretty simple. You just cut it out, you tape the circles together, and then you cut out your pattern. So this is the center front piece. I am going to show you. So you want, first thing I'm going to look at is the direction of greatest stretch. So the direction of greatest stretch on the stretch mesh is going this way. As you can see on this way, it's a little bit firmer. So I'm going to lay this down. And then I'm going to lay this on top. I'm going to make sure that's the direction of least stretch, and this is the direction of greatest stretch. I'm going to make sure that the direction of greatest stretch is the same on the main fabric and the lining fabric. And this might be obvious to some, it might be not obvious to others, but your pattern piece will say what type of fabric that you need for this piece. And for this one, it's main fabric and lining fabric, and then the combo fabric. There is a separate piece for the combo fabric, but I have more success if I cut this out and then align the galloon lace on top. It'll make sense once I get to that point. Okay, so I have my main fabric and my lining fabric in the direction of greatest stretch, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray base them together using the 505. And the reason why we do this is because cutting out fine fabrics such as stretch mesh and lining can be very difficult, and lace. So if you block fuse them together, it eliminates or prevents them from shifting. So I'm going to fold this back. Spray a little bit. And then I'm going to lay this on top. And I'm going to work out, I'm going to start from the center and then work out any bubbles that are on it. Okay, once they are block fused together, and I'm not being conscious of like how much fabric I'm saving, I'm just sort of doing this for demo and cutting it out anywhere. So now I'm going to fold it in half. and the center front piece is cut on the fold. So I'm gonna align that with the fold. I'm gonna use my OTIFs as a pattern weight. I'm gonna cut out the pattern using a 28mm rotary cutter. Madalynne has a list on Amazon that is super helpful, and it has this on here. This will make cutting so much easier. Okay, so I have cut out the center front. Now, there is a separate pattern piece for the stretch galloon lace to go on top. But what I like to do is, and you can cut out separately and then spray base it or pin it to the center front bodice. But what I like to do is I actually like to place this on here. I know that it's going to come to 0 at the shoulder seam. I know that's they're going to meet at the center front. So I like to place it so that I can see it, and it's just easier for me. So I am going to lay this on top so that it will meet at the center front. And then I also, at the seam line, at the shoulder seam, I like this scallop edge to be right at the fabric's edge. So let me repeat that. At the shoulder seam line, I like this scallop edge of the lace to meet the fabric's edge of the center front bodice. So that when you sew this center front bodice to the back bodice, you don't have like this lace peeking out. It'll look really nice and clean. So once I have this placed, I'm going to fold it back a little bit, spray some OTIFs, lay it down, pat it, voila. So I have one side. And now let me do the other side. And I'll be conscious of my pattern matching too. So I want to have this motif, I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, aligned with that same motif on the other side. Okay, voila. So I've cut out the center front bodice, and you will use this same technique to cut out all of the other pieces. Cut out, block fuse the main fabric, the lining fabric, cut out the piece. If you need to put any lace over it, then I put that on top. Now I know that this question is going to come up for the lace panels. for the leg and armhole, where should you have on this, it says scallop edge of galloon lace. Should it be on the high point of the scallop or the low point of the scallop? Now it says it in your pattern directions, but you want the edge of the pattern to align with the low point of the scallop. So the high point of the scallop will overlap. Let me put this on top. So you want the edge of the pattern to align with the low point of the scallop. You also want to make sure that at the seam line that it's at like a point on the scallop, because you're going to be sewing this to another piece, so you want to make sure that the scallop edges meet at the seam line. And that's it. Okay. So that is today's Facebook Live. Went over fabric, supplies, trims, and then cutting. I will be back next week. We will start sewing next week and go from there. And if you have any interest in attending the bra making workshop next Saturday, email hello@madalynne.com.